How do I do it? I don't know. Well, maybe. Maybe we'll figure it out one day. But also, maybe that day's not today. I can, fuck it. Instagram sucks. And as for you guys coming in on YouTube, coming in hot, let's get the music up and running. There we are. Good. Oh, Simba, you want to come and join? Simba, do you want to come? No? All right. Oh, Coot, you're early. You're early. Give it about 30 more seconds, and then we'll get there, buddy. I promise. Oh, I've got to put my sleeve on it. My beer condom. Very important. Always practice safe drinking. See if we can get you guys a little higher. Well, that looks better. All right. I see some people getting in. Good, good, good. Let's go ahead and turn this down and get ready for today's lesson. So, first off, welcome everybody. Welcome to Live with Jack number 95, where today I'm going to teach you exactly how to find the one. The one. Oh, Matichi, what's up, buddy? The stream tab started on its own finally. Good. Good. I'm glad that something is actually working today, because for me, nothing's been working today. So today I'm going to be teaching you everything about how to identify the right characteristics for the girl you're looking for, how to identify what kind of traits it is that you're looking for, and how to actually do the actions needed and apply this in your real life. But if you would like to truly enjoy today's experiences, if you would like to take it up to orgasmic levels, then all you need to do is grab your glass, your mug, or your flask, a chalice, a stein, or even a cask, raise it high, and let's make a splash. It's time now for our libation bash. Toast the night and enjoy the mood. Together now we drink some booze. On your mark, let's not wait. It's cheers with chaps, so don't be late. Cheers, boys. Cheers, JJ. JJ, where are you watching from today? I know you're out of the country right now. Where'd you get off to? Some crazy place. Way out there in the hills, Nimnar Hills. All right. Let's jump into today's topic. So, first off, God, I hate the lighting on this camera, but nothing to be done there. Oh, that's right, Uzbekistan. Ah, yes. Well, tell Uzbekistan that Papa Jack says, what's up? All right, so let's jump into how to actually find the one. Now, I should start by telling you there's no such thing as the one, but there are better matches than others out there for you. The kind of person you are, the personality you have, the traits, the characteristics you possess. Some girls are going to be a better match to that than other types of girls, right? We understand that. So we aren't looking for 1 out of 7 billion. We're actually probably looking at, we're looking for somewhere in like the 1 out of 7 kind of category if you're trying to find somebody to date, and then closer to about 1 out of 100 if you're looking for the right match. So whenever we say the one, what I actually mean is there are about, 70 million of them out there for you. So there we go, get the microphone up. So don't feel like, oh, this is impossible, needle in a haystack, right? Don't worry, there's 700 million of them out there for you. All you have to do is figure out who it is that you're looking for. The problem most guys have whenever they are trying to find somebody to date is they just say, well, I'm looking for a serious relationship, so I just need to find a girl who's looking for a serious relationship. And that's it. That's the worst possible way to try and find the one, or to try and find a good girl to match with. That's like going into a car dealership and saying, right, I have no idea what I'm looking for. I have no idea what my budget is. I have no idea what my credit score is. I don't even know what a sedan or an SUV is. No clue what any of that is. I just want a car and I don't care about anything else. Then are you going to get the best deal? Definitely not. Are you going to get the best car? Absolutely not. Same thing here. If you don't know who it is that you're looking for, if you don't know what you're looking for, you're gonna get fucked. And I don't mean that in a good way. So let's actually start by identifying what this even means. So the first thing that we're going to be assuming in this discussion is that you're looking for some kind of a meaningful relationship. This doesn't have to be that you're looking for a long-term relationship leading towards marriage, but it can mean that. It might just mean you're looking for somebody to build a real connection with and have a great time with for a summer fling. That's okay too. But the point is that you're looking for somebody who you actually match with and you can build a meaningful connection with, not just somebody who you're like, yeah, they're fun to be around. They're good enough, right? And then I just kind of ignore them the rest of the time whenever they're annoying. This is only applicable whenever you're looking for somebody that you're planning on spending a lot of time with and building something together with. If you just want to bang and then go, if you want to, as my mechanic friend says, nut and bolt, then none of this matters, right? Then all you're focused on is physical attraction, and that's it. So for the purpose of all of this stuff today, we're going to be talking about creating a meaningful connection for a real relationship. The next thing that you need to think about is you need to think about what kind of lifestyle it is that you want to have with this person. Are you looking for somebody who can just stay home and keep you warm all winter? Are you looking for somebody to go out to all the bars and party with you? Are you looking for somebody who's going to be a good balance with you? Are you looking for somebody to build a long-time relationship with, like a lifetime relationship? Because that's going to affect what kind of lifestyle it is that you're trying to build together. Another thing to point out here is very obvious differences. Like if you want to drink, but she doesn't drink at all, that's too big of a clash. You can't really hang out together then if you want to drink all the time and she hates drinking, right? So you should pay attention to large lifestyle things like that. Those are going to make a big difference. The next thing that you need to pay attention to, again, we're all in like pre-programming right now. This is all just the stuff you need to know before we get into the stuff to actually figure out, before we get into the stuff to do. The last thing I put on here is your vibe check, chemistry and types. Listen, you can have somebody who fits absolutely everything that you set down, but if there's no chemistry between the two of you, if you guys meet up and it's like, oh, it feels like talking to my cousin, like it's fun, but I don't get any of the feelings. Or if she doesn't, then there's no chemistry there and you can already just count her out. Same thing. If you know, once you've gone through all this stuff and you know which types it is that you're looking for, and then you meet somebody and the chemistry is there and you're thinking like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be so much fun. And you get infatuated, you get Twitter-pated like from Bambi, but it's the wrong type. This is not going to be a meaningful connection. This is just going to be a short-term wham bam, thank you ma'am, maybe a few week fling, but it's not going to be anything serious or meaningful. So make sure that, first of all, you're matching to the right types, and second, that you actually have chemistry before you go into trying to build anything deeper. There's nothing worse than seeing a guy who tries to build a big relationship up in his head, but the girl just isn't feeling it at all. And so she gets the hell out of there immediately. So don't be that guy. Understand, learn how to feel the vibe, learn how to feel the chemistry. Now, with that said, let's actually talk about who it is that you're trying to meet. One of the worst pieces of advice that I've ever heard, and this is very common, I hear this all the time, is people say something like, oh, I want to marry my best friend. No, you fucking don't. No, you absolutely don't. Listen, if you get into a relationship with someone who's a carbon copy of yourself, they're the same as you, but just a female instead, that's not going to lead to a good, serious, meaningful relationship. Actually, it's going to lead to a lot more conflict and a lot more fighting because you're both sharing the same traits. And we're going to go into that in a little bit here. You don't want someone who's the same as you. You don't want to marry your best friend. That's stupid fucking advice. No, you don't. You do not want that. You want to find somebody who actually balances you out, who plays the opposite to you. That's the most important. Oh, hello, Celino. What's that? So you do not want a carbon copy. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you want the polar opposite either. What you're actually looking for is you're looking for somebody who can balance you out in different ways. Now, for those of you who have met Lady North, or for any of you who saw the special live stream that we did last Saturday before Christmas, then you would understand that our dynamic is very much that of opposites. She has a totally different personality than me. She has a different sense of humor. She has a different sensibility about conversations, about flirting, all of that stuff. We are almost complete opposites. However, we aren't completely polar opposites. There are a few things that are very important that you have together that actually vibe with each other, that are the same. And that's your core values. These are the things that are most important to you. So for me, that would be something like family, friends are incredibly important. My business is incredibly important. Helping people out, taking calls from guys all over the world, incredibly important. This is high value to me. I knew before we got into a serious relationship, I only wanted to get married for the purpose of having children. So when we decided to get married, that was something that we had to talk about. That was something we had to make sure we matched on, that we were both on the same page there. So even though we might be complete opposites in many ways, there are also a lot of things that must be matching. This could also go for things like, depending on your personality and what your core values are, this could be things like religions need to match. This could be things like ethics or morals need to match. This could be something like your politics might need to match. Again, depending on what's important to you. If I'm going to be entirely honest, I don't even know what Lady North thinks about politics. We don't talk about it. She might not even think anything about it. She might not pay any attention. I know that she votes, but I have no idea who she votes for. No clue. No clue. Because it's not a thing that's important to either of us for our relationship. So you need to figure out what your core values are, and you need to make sure that the two of you vibe on those core issues. Then, on the other things, you can complement one another and you can be opposites, because those help you get better and it helps her get better as well. So let's talk about the yin and the yang. Now, I've talked a little bit before about some of the different traits that complement each other, some of the different things that she and I have together that complement each other. But let's first focus on the ideas of the masculine and the feminine. So we've talked a little bit about this, about the masculine and feminine push and pull. And a while back, like probably a year or so ago, I did a live stream about why women act so masculine these days. And for most of them, it's because men aren't stepping up to the plate and being masculine enough, which then gives them the breathing room to show their more feminine sides. So this is going to be an important thing, and this might be a tough pill for some people to swallow, is that most people, if we're looking at a male to purely masculine to purely feminine scale, where this would be like 100% masculine and 100% feminine, most men are going to fall somewhere between this 100% masculine and this about 25% feminine spot here. This is where most men are going to fall, somewhere in this range. And women, on the other hand, are going to fall somewhere between the 100% feminine to about 25% masculine side of things. Now, this is important to note because you need to figure out, of your traits and your qualities, how masculine or how feminine are you? Because very, very, very few people would be 100% masculine. This might be like your Jocko Willing type guy or something like that. That would just be like pure masculinity, not just physically, but mentally and strength and emotionally and all of this stuff. And that's okay. But I'm not that. I know, hard to believe, right? But I need to figure out where I fall on this chart, because the further I fall down this way, the harder I have to find a girl who balances the same amount of femininity on the other side. So if I'm falling very high into the masculinity category, then I need a woman who falls almost as high in the femininity category. The same is true if I'm a more feminine man, right? If I'm a little bit further on this side, then I'm going to need a woman who's a little bit more on the masculine side to kind of balance it out. You can look at some of the different traits that we're going to go into in a little bit, and you can figure out, as you look at them a little bit more objectively, kind of where you fall in this masculine to feminine dynamic. And that will help you to better understand who it is that you want to attract, who it is that is going to be a good balance, a good yin to your yang. If you, like most men, are probably around here-ish, somewhere between the 10 to 70% masculine side of things. And if you're in this range and you try to date a girl who's also masculine, which I've made this mistake and I've done this before, all that it leads to is it just leads to butting heads, and it leads to fighting, and it leads to arguing. Why? Because you share a lot of the same traits. Not only do you share a lot of the same traits, but that means you also share a lot of the same weaknesses, a lot of the same vulnerabilities and blind spots that you wouldn't see in yourself, but you see it in her. And then it makes you angry that you see it in her, because you know that that's something that you have. And then it creates this vicious cycle because she's feeling the same thing. You do not want to date someone who's in a similar place to you on the masculine feminine dynamic. You need someone who balances you on the other side of things. Okay. So this is also going to be true with all of the other traits that we're talking about later on, as we're looking for complementary traits. And I don't mean that with an I mean that with an E, which I guess you guys can see here. Basically things that match with one another, right? The square peg, square hole, not square peg, round hole, right? So we're looking for things that actually match one another. So what we're going to be looking for in all of this is we're going to be looking for 3 key ingredients. 1, complements, things that actually match and make each other better, that help each other. Conversation styles also need to be complementary, because like I was saying earlier, when you're both the same, it creates arguments and pushback and things like that. 2 talkers getting together is going to create an issue, because both of you are always trying to talk over one another. Same problem if you have 2 listeners, then you're just going to end up with silence all the time. The most ideal kind of communication style or conversation style is 1 talker and 1 listener. Now you can trade back and forth, because in different situations, I'm going to talk more than she is. She's going to talk more than I am in other situations, and that's fine. But you do need somebody who matches your style of conversation and of communication, because as you're going to communicate with each other, there are definitely going to be misunderstandings. There are definitely going to be problems, and you have to figure out how to get through those. So your conversation and communication styles need to match, need to complement one another, not necessarily be the same. And our last one, everyone's favorite, copulation. If you aren't hooking up, it's not a real relationship. If you aren't hooking up, you are just friends. This is an important thing. It's also just as important to find somebody who either matches your libido or is willing to match your libido, right? This is an important thing. Sometimes people will get into relationships with somebody where all the traits match and everything seems good, but you get bed death. Nobody wants bed death, right? Then you basically just have a roommate. Who the fuck wants a roommate? That's a very expensive roommate. So make sure that this part is happening too. This is just as important as everything else. I know people want to act like, oh, that's a dirty word. Oh, you shouldn't talk about it. Oh, no, I just love the person for who they are. Oh, fuck off. You love them because of who they are, but also because they touch your boner. So let's be real here. That is an important part of it. And you need to admit that and accept that if somebody cannot provide this or is not willing to provide this, this is not a serious relationship. Now, let's move on to the actual action steps, which means I get to turn you guys a little bit so you can see better. Oh, hey there, Lane Stevens. I see you in here. Oh, somebody named Jack North XX joined. Hello, Jack North XX. I wonder if that's a troll or if that's actually somebody with the same name as me. I'll have to look later. That's curious. All right, so let's talk about your actual action steps. What is it that, wake up camera. Okay, good. What is it that you need to do in order to start meeting the one? So first thing that you have to do is you need to figure out your own shit. This is critical. You need to figure out who you are and what traits and characteristics you possess, because that's going to impact everything else. So you have to hold the mirror of truth up to yourself, even if it's uncomfortable, even if parts of it are negative. And they will be. They absolutely will be. So you need to deep dive into yourself and figure out what traits and characteristics you possess. And don't worry, I'm going to show you guys an example of exactly how all of this works in a few minutes. But you need to figure out what traits you possess. So sit down and actually think objectively. Write out your character traits. If you wanted to say, to do this as objectively as possible, if you wanted to write yourself as a movie character or as a character in a novel or in a comic book or something like that, how would you write this character? What traits would they have? And this is important because you have to be honest. You have to be real. You cannot write the fictionalized, stylized version of yourself. You need to write this character with all of its strengths and weaknesses. So you need to sit down and write as many different characteristics or traits of yourself as you can think of. These are things that you exemplify regularly. Not something that you hope you exemplify, not something that you want to exemplify, but your actual traits that you actually possess. Okay? So we're going to write down a list of all of our traits. Let's put that here. Traits. The next thing you need to do is you need to figure out what the second and third order consequences of that trait are. Let me explain how that works. You need to figure out, if I have this trait, what behavior does this trait cause? And this is very important because whenever you sit down to make this list of traits, you're probably going to start by being like, oh, you know what? I'm pretty smart. Okay, yeah, cool, awesome. So what behavior does that lead to? You have to be able to explain that. If you can't explain the behavior, then it's probably not either it's not really a trait, or it's not an identifiable trait, or it's not something that you actually possess. So this is important. You need to be able to write down what behavior presents to the world because I have this trait. What do I do because of this trait that I naturally possess or that I have forced myself to possess? Once you write down the behaviors, then you need to write down the perception. How does society view this behavior? How does this come off to people? Whenever people see me act in this way, they see this behavior, they view it as what? So back to the previous example, if you wrote down, because you think you're a smarty pants, if you wrote down, I'm intelligent, so I like to have political discussions and debates with everyone everywhere I go, the social perception of that would be fucking obnoxious. Nobody likes that guy. Okay, that's important to know because, again, we're being objective. We're looking at this from the outside. We're not looking at what we wish people felt about our behaviors. We're looking at how people actually see our behaviors, how they perceive them. Because, as we've talked about before, perception is reality. And how they view you is how you are in their mind. No matter what you think, no matter what you feel, this is their reality that we're talking about. So this is important. We're going to write down the traits, the behaviors that leads to, and the perception that people have of these behaviors. Once we have these, then we can figure out, okay, cool. What kind of traits or characteristics, if my partner possessed, would balance this out? What would help me to either improve with this trait, or how could this trait enhance her life? For example, if one of my traits is I am incredibly strong, and so the behavior that I do all the time because I'm strong is I help people open pickle jars and I lift people's bags all the time and I pick things up. I'm like, okay, cool. So if somebody were physically weak, this is a shit example, by the way. We're going to go into actual examples later. But if somebody is physically weak is one of their traits, then okay, cool. This trait that I have enhances her life because she has the opposite. She has a need for this thing. So I can bring this to bear on the relationship. This is important because we're not just looking for her to make us better, but we're also looking for us to help balance her out as well. So it not only balances, but this creates your offer. Now, I've talked before on the live stream about how important it is to create the right offer so that you know who you're packaging this to, so that you know essentially what you're showing them, what you're selling them, so that you understand what you're offering. You're going to create this list because some of these are going to be negative and you're going to need help to get better at them, but some of them are going to be positive and you're going to use those to enhance her life. So understand those things, well, they're going to be blue. I'll get to that in a minute. But those blue things, those positive adjectives and words and traits and behaviors and perceptions are going to be part of your offer to her, that you're trying to bring her into your life by having these traits, by being this person. So important to know. Now, let's actually get down into how does this help us find the one. So far, all that we've done is we've talked about who she's not, how to figure out, like some basic bullshit and how to figure out about ourselves. But okay, Papa Jack, that's a whole lot of stuff. How do I actually get to the girl part of it? Cool. Now that we know all of this, we can actually figure out what we're looking for in her. Because remember, up here, we wrote down our traits, the behaviors that come from it, and the perception that people have, that society has on us. And the fourth column here is the balance trait. We're looking for what would be the good balance to this trait. Either something that she's lacking or something that she has that I'm lacking. What would be the good balance trait to this? This column, this balance column, is who we're looking for. She possesses these traits, or at least most of these traits. This is our ideal situation. This is who we're looking for. This is going to give us a really good starting point for, okay, cool. If I have a list of how many traits do you think that you could write down about yourself in, say, 10 minutes? Maybe like 10, 20, something like that. Then if you go through it and you do the behaviors, the perception, and the balancing traits, then now you have a list of 10 to 20 traits that you're looking for in a girl, or that you want her to have in an ideal situation. A girl who ticks off 50% of those is going to be probably a pretty good match for you, especially on the more important ones. So We're looking for those complementing characteristics, those balancing traits that are going to help to either enhance her life or that are going to help to evolve you and make you better. The next thing that we need to do is we need to actually look at that list of traits that we've created for her and say, okay, cool. Now, as I'm looking at this list of traits, which types seem to line up most with these traits? I need to figure out exactly which of the 14 types I want to be meeting, I want to be attracting. And if you guys don't yet know about the 14 types, I know all you guys on YouTube, you guys know. You know about the types, but some of you guys on Instagram probably don't know yet. If you don't know about it, you can check my bio, or you can go to realjacknorth.com and you can sign up for a call with me there. Or in my bio, I think that there's actually a link to the free ebook guide about the 14 types. So you can learn all this very easily, very quickly, no problem. And then you'll understand better about who it is that you're targeting. So you need to figure out exactly which types you're targeting and just as important, who you also want to repel. You want to know who you're attracting, but you also want to know who you're repelling. Because remember, oh, hey there, buddy, long time no see. Because just like we said earlier, right, making sure that the types match as well as the chemistry, right, so that you aren't just begging the wrong type and wasting your time with a relationship that's actually not going to work out. Because if she's the wrong type, she probably doesn't actually possess the right traits for you anyway. So make sure that you write down who it is that you want to attract and who you want to repel. The next part is you have to actually build your system out. Now, I did a complete breakdown of this about 1 month, 6 weeks ago, somewhere like that. It was called How to Attract Any Woman, and that's what you need to do. That one goes start to finish on exactly how you build your system out, on exactly how you create the version of you that is going to be most attractive to this girl, right? And you can also use this whole thing that you just wrote down, all of these traits that you wrote down, you can use that to build your system, because the parts of you that are going to be an enhancement for her, that are going to help her life, that are going to make her better, that's your offer. That's what you want to show her. That's what you want to package and put together, right? So I don't want girls to see the part of me that sits at home and thinks about things to write for my blog, or writes down 100 different ideas for videos or for live stream concepts or whatever. I don't want her to see that part at the beginning. Why? Because I'm trying to attract a girl who's the balance to me. Because I'm outgoing and energetic, I'm trying to attract girls who are more introverted, a little bit calmer. Okay, cool. So my offer to them is the opposite. It's the yin yang. It's the balance. My offer to them is the high energy, high charisma, very outgoing, that kind of personality. So why would I package the stay at home and focus on work part of me when that's going to repel them? Instead, I want somebody who sees that I'm the opposite of them, that I have a good offer for them. And then they say, oh yeah, that's great. This is fantastic. Now, this system, this packaging, this isn't lying. This isn't hiding things. That's not what it is at all. It's showing them the parts of you that are true, that are real, but the parts of you that balance them out, because that's the part of you that they need to see so that they can show you the other parts of themselves as well. When you're being real, when you're being honest, when you're being congruent, all of this stuff comes across completely naturally. And it doesn't come across as fake at all, because it's real. Because you obviously, as everyone does, have different facets to your personality. Just the same way that I can sit here and talk for, what are we at? About 35 minutes straight, going a mile a minute, no slow down, never slow down, always talk. But also, I can sit here in complete silence for 6 hours straight and work on writing. Both are true, both are real, both are part of me. Only one of them attracts the type of girl that I'm actually looking for, because I want the balanced trait against my more natural instincts. So We've done that. We've created the list of traits for ourselves. We've written down the behaviors that those cause, and we've written down the perception that people have based on those behaviors. Then we've written down the balancing traits that the girl should possess in order to either help us evolve and grow better, or that we can use to enhance her life and make a very good offer for her. Right? Awesome. Now, with all that, we've written down exactly which types this is going to best encompass. And we've built out a whole system of how to show these different traits, these different behaviors, so that we can better attract the type of girl who's going to balance us out. Great. Now we've done all of this stuff. We've done all of this contemplation and all of this philosophy and all of this mental masturbation. Now, all you have to do is just fucking approach. Go out and talk to the girls. Go out and find the girls. Go out and do the approaches, because you have all the knowledge. You have everything you need, and you have to do the approaches. If you do that, after doing these exercises, you increase your odds of finding the one from 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000 to probably about 1 in 5, because you've built a filtration system so that as soon as you start talking to a girl, you already know, okay, cool. I see some of these traits. These are the ones I'm looking for. Awesome. Oh, no, I'm seeing the opposite. I'm seeing these more masculine traits, these things that I'm not looking for. Cool. You know what? It was lovely to meet you. It's very nice to talk to you. Have a good night. Okay. Let me go hang out with my friends. See you later. Bye. And then you go on about your way, because you know what you're looking for so specifically that whenever you walk in and you're looking for a Lamborghini and they offer you a Toyota, you just say, oh, that's a nice Toyota. And then you keep walking, because that's not what you're looking for. That's why this is so important. That's why figuring out what your traits are, who it is you're looking for, and what traits she possesses, that's why understanding the types is so important, because you don't want to go in looking for a Lamborghini and then you settle for a Toyota. Right? Cool. Now, let's actually do a version of this. Let's do an example live. Hey, great idea, Papa Jack. I like that. Here's what we're going to do. In about 15 minutes, I jotted down. I know you can't see this. I know you can't read this. That's okay. We're going to do it on the board. Don't worry. I jotted down a bunch of different traits of myself. And I jotted down what behaviors those present as in the real world. And I jotted down what people's perception of those things are. And I jotted down what the balancing traits would be for those. So in 15 minutes to do all 4 columns, I came up with 7 traits of mine, behaviors, perceptions, and complementing or balancing traits. 15 minutes is all that it takes to create actually a pretty solid list of things that I'm looking for and things that I need to work on and stuff like that. So let's do this live in real time. With that, I need different colors, don't I? Yes, I do. Because as we write these traits down, we're going to do a few things. Oh, goodbye. Goodbye, cruel world. Oh. We're going to do a few things. First, I don't know if you guys on Instagram can see this well. If you can, awesome. If you can't, too bad, so sad. Maybe I'll try moving this in a little bit, make it a little easier for you. Okay, so traits. We're going to look at these completely objectively. No bluster, but also no judgment. Right? We're not looking at things and saying like, oh, well, what's so great about me? Or what's so bad about me? None of that. We're only looking at what is true, what is objectively true as far as traits go. Next, behaviors. Same thing here. We're looking at what is objectively true. So both of these are purely objective. Now, we get to get into the perception, where this is, of course, subjective, because we're kind of guessing what people think, but we're also basing this on, whenever I see people acting this way, what behaviors do I think? So for that purpose, we're going to write these down as blue if they're good. We're going to write them down as red if they're bad, or negative views. And the final thing is balance or complement. So Let's look through the traits together. First off, our first trait here is enthusiastic. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is me. I get very excited. You could write this down as excitable as well. You could write this down in a lot of different ways, but I just went with enthusiastic. I'm a very enthusiastic person. I get into stuff, and whenever I do, I go all in. So what does that actually look like behavior-wise? Well, that usually comes out as kind of obsessive behavior. Set? Yeah. So this comes across as obsessive behavior, where I will go all in on something and just spend all of my time and all of my focus and all of my energy doing it. But then that also means that I burn out quickly because I get really enthusiastic for one thing and then I jump to the new shiny object, right? That can be dangerous. So this is going to come out with a negative perception. This is going to make me seem somewhat unreliable. In fact, probably the most reliable thing that I've ever done in my life is this live stream, where we've been going for 95 weeks straight without missing a single Thursday. That's pretty reliable. But also, that's the exception that proves the rule. The fact that I don't do that with all of my other behaviors shows me that, yeah, this is correct. So again, looking at it from an outside perspective. So on balance, what kind of trait am I looking for in a girl? Well, I'm looking for somebody who's more grounded. I'm looking for somebody who's more stable. Grounded. No, that would be the French version, right, Coot? I'm looking for somebody who's more grounded, somebody who's more stable, somebody who follows the same path, the same plan, more, what would the word be? Somebody who just does the same shit again and again and again, right? Anyway, that would be a good balance to me because that would help me to focus in a little bit more. Awesome. That's something I can look for. Cool. Next up, independent. I'm going to go through the rest of these rather quickly. I am independent. I have been for a long time. I've lived on my own for, over a decade before I got married, right? So this means that I need a lot of alone time. And I tend to focus hard on things and to not really pay as much attention to other things that are going on whenever I'm focused on something. So how can this come across? Well, this can have both positive and negative perceptions, right? Because this can look like I am uncaring, but this can also look like I am very focused or driven. Okay, so both of these can be true as far as perception goes. So what am I looking for in a girl if this is the case? If I'm highly independent and I need a lot of alone time and I tend to focus and shut her out, what am I looking for? Well, I'm looking for the opposite. I'm looking for somebody, or rather, not the opposite. I'm looking for somebody who is low maintenance, somebody who doesn't need my focus all the time. Right? Somebody who complements this trait. So I'm looking for somebody who's low maintenance to complement this trait of independence. Next up, I am bold. I don't particularly care what people think, and I often act without worry about future issues. Audacious would be a better word for it. So I'm quick to act. This would be the behavior. How does this come across? This comes across, the perception would be decisive. If you wanted to put a negative moniker on it, you could call it foolish because oftentimes it is. But no matter here. So if I'm overly decisive, if I'm quick to decide and just say what I want and then do that thing, then what would be the balance to that? That would be somebody who's indecisive. Or somebody who is constantly uncertain of what to do. Somebody who doesn't have that instinct of like, right, well, fuck it, just do the thing. Okay, next. We're looking at outgoing. Yeah. Definitely one of my biggest traits. What does this look like? This means I talk a lot. This means I make new friends regularly. Basically, every time we go out, I got a new friend. Hey, look at that. So, how does this come across? How does this look to people? This is going to come across as charismatic. And so, I'm going to look for somebody who is what? Not somebody who's uncharismatic. That's not a good balance, right? Actually, what problems could this cause? Or what would this help with? Let's try to figure that out. So instead of somebody who's uncharismatic, what I'm going to be looking for here is somebody who can balance this well, who can complement my energy without having to be the same. I'm not looking for somebody who's trying to be the star of the show along with me. I'm not looking for a co-star. I'm looking for somebody who is comfortable with me doing my thing and lets it ride without worrying about it. So I'm looking for somebody who's self-assured. All right, cool. Let's do just one more of these because as it goes further down, it's really hard for me to write these. So our next one here is going to be passionate. So I'm very passionate, which means that whenever I do something, and I kind of mentioned this up here with enthusiastic, whenever I do something, I go 100%. So I go 100% on everything. Okay, cool. So how does this look perception-wise to other people? Well, it means I go 100% on everything. That means if I go out to drink, I'm not leaving until I've drunk everything. If I go out to talk to girls, I'm not going home until I've talked to everyone. I do everything to the fullest with no stops, no breaks at all. So this can often come across as way too much. I do everything in excess, which can be an issue. So what do I need? I need somebody who is patient as hell. I need somebody who can understand me, who's like, okay, look, Jack, like it. I like the enthusiasm. That's a lot of fun, but rein it in a little bit. No, listen, coming home at 3 a.m. is more than enough. You don't have to take the first train home every single night, or even worse, stay out for a 24-hour, 48-hour bender, right? Just go out and party a bit and then have your friends throw you in a taxi around 2 or 3. Okay, cool. Got it. Understand. That's patient. I love that. That's great. Now, one of the things that some of you guys may notice is that as I created this list, wow, this looks remarkably like Lady North, right? Holy shit, Jack. Did you plan this around her? No. I just actually did the things that I taught you earlier, and it works. That's how you know it works. It's worked for me. You've seen it in action. So now I've taught you every single thing that you need to know to actually start finding the right girl for a good, serious relationship, starting right now. 15 minutes from now, you could have this whole list written down about yourself and about the girl that you want to meet, that you want to talk to. So why wait? Do it now. Go ahead. Do it. Or actually, wait until after the Q&A section. Wait until after this stream finishes and then do it. But either way, you should go ahead and start working on this now, because as soon as you do, all of these pieces are going to start falling into place. Because once you have this list of traits here, of these things that I'm looking for in a woman, then you can instantly start to say, oh, okay, cool. Well, I can definitely see which type of girl this is, right? I can easily see, oh, grounded, low maintenance, kind of indecisive or uncertain. She's patient. This is a worker bee, isn't it? This is very obviously a worker bee. Whenever you look at it like that, then it's like, oh, well, yeah, of course. Now it looks obvious when you say that, Jack. Yeah, it is. When you write it all down, whenever you just look at it, you're like, oh, so I'm already naturally very attractive to this type of girl who also I personally find very attractive. Wow, Amazing. It's almost like it's a meaningful match, like I said at the very beginning. So, with all of that said, if anything here, if any of this was useful to you, or if you learned something new, or if you had a laugh, or if you had a cheers with me, or anything, I want you right now to hit that like button. Now, I see how many of you are on the live stream right now. So I'm going to check, and I want to see that every single one of you has hit that thumbs up button, because it really does help a lot. It means a lot to me. It helps the channel grow, and it helps more people learn how to create more meaningful relationships. So please do that for me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And with that said, let's go ahead and move over to the live Q&A section of tonight's party. Oh, all right. Paul, would you mind clicking yourself in? There you go.
Yes,
and I'm going to get us set up over here in the Papa Jack chair. Ooh. Turn you down a bit. That's pretty good. All right. The Papa Jack party chair. Okay. I don't know if we can keep you guys here. We got a new chair. I'm using a chair to set up the other camera, and it is cushiony, to say the least. You know what? What we might have to do is good enough. Nope. Whatever. Fuck it. Sorry. Instagram. You're gonna go bye-bye. Bye-bye. If you want to see the rest of this, pop over to youtube.com/@realjacknorth. You can find me there. We're going to do the live Q&A for the YouTube folks. Ask your questions, get your answers. See you there. Papa Jack out. End video. Yup. Awesome. Cool. All right, what? Fuck it. I'll deal with that shit later. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, sure. I think we're going to go with a question for the Discord first. So JJ asked, what if you already found a good one, but she's not into you? Are you trying to set up a date, but she's always busy, etc.? So you meet other girls, but still thinking about her as your ideal type. What do you have to do in this case? Continue to meet new girls and look for the best one? Question mark.
Okay. Couple of things there. I'm going to turn you up a little bit so that I can hear you better. But something important to point out here is if you've met a girl and she's not interested in dating you, that's not your ideal type. Unless your ideal type is some kind of like weird relationship that you're not part of. Like if it's like a parasocial relationship, then that's not your ideal girl, right? Because she could have every other trait, but if she lacks the trait of wants to be in a relationship with you, then she's not the ideal type, right? The same way that like, so JJ, maybe you would think, oh yeah, you know, Jack, he has everything great going for him, right? He's so friendly, he's so outgoing. Oh, he matches all of the different things that I'm looking for, except for the very, very small detail that he's a guy. But other than that, he's a perfect match for me, right? No, clearly not. Because that one big difference, that one little difference, it can make a very big difference, honestly. So you can use parts of her traits and her personality to inform what it is that you're looking for. And you have to be careful with this because you don't want to use it objectively. You want to use it subjectively. She has helped me do these things because she possesses this trait that has improved my life in this way, right? Something like that. You can use those things to help you build a better list, but she's lacking a crucial ingredient. So she is not your ideal type. Definitely meet other girls. What do you think, Paul?
I completely agree. Like the second she either doesn't like you in the first place or she leaves the relationship if it actually ever started, it's over, right? Like there's not much you can do about that. For finding your ideal type, I think it to some degree can apply what is known as the secretary problem. The secretary problem is, say you have to choose the best. It's called choosing the best one problem.
I've heard of this. Yeah, go on.
And what you do is, for about, say, if you're meeting 100 people, for the first 37, your only job is to decide which was the best one. And then for the remaining 63, you choose whoever is better than the best one you already met. So if that is number 38.
Or at least as close to the best one as possible.
Yeah, and then as close to the best one as possible, and that's the one you choose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
I can't do much about
well.
Mike today.
Yeah, Paul's mic isn't my type. That's right, Coot. Paul has a.
Let's see if I can change the
crackly Norwegian internet. He needs to get back on that Korean broadband, maybe. Yes, it is.
Okay. Then apparently my
were you torrenting a bunch of porn or something?
No, I guess my laptop has multiple built-in mics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just finding whoever you think is better or better in a different way than the best you've already met. That is usually who I would say you should pursue.
Yeah. So I did mention this when I was going through the lesson, but I want to double down on it again to make sure that it's abundantly clear. We aren't looking for somebody who has 100% of the traits, right? We're looking for somebody who possesses some to most of them and no deal breaker traits. The masculine to feminine dynamic is going to be much more important to your relationship than any single one of these traits that we wrote down. So pay more attention to that than any one trait. But these traits give you a general direction for what you're looking for, right? The same way that, like, again, to take it back to the car analogy, if you know what brand of car you're looking for and you know your general price range, then things like the actual make or model could be a little bit negotiable. The color could be a little bit negotiable, but you know generally what you're looking for down to a pretty specified thing. Then, okay, cool. Now that we know what the pool is, I can choose from them. And honestly, if you meet, how long would it take you to, I'm going to posit a guess to this. And Paul, I want you to tell me if I'm being realistic or if I'm just being an absolute madman. I think that within 6 weeks, you could meet 3 girls who possessed 50% of the traits that you're looking for. Within 6 weeks, you could meet 3. And that would not require too much based on my experience. This would require probably about once you're good at identifying the types, and you're reasonably well calibrated, this would take maybe, I don't know, 10 to 15 approaches a week. If you're new and you're starting out, we might need to double that and do about 30 approaches a week. But still, it's very reasonable to, with 30 approaches a week, meet. So that puts you at 180 approaches over 6 weeks to meet 3 girls who possess at least 50% of this trait list. Does that seem like a reasonable estimation?
Oh yeah, for sure. I can tell a little bit about my experience from that when I started out, because one of the first things you made me do was to make that list.
Yeah.
I think we did. I might have gone a little bit overboard because I probably ended up with like 40 traits that I at first absolutely had to have. And then I think I had like 10, 15 absolute deal breakers. But what it turned out to after a while, like meeting new girls, was that the more and more girls I met, the more and more things I moved out in the definitely must have into the not. I'm not going to be disappointed if they have, but I don't need this bracket. And the same actually happened for the deal breakers too. Some of them I actually moved to don't really want, but I can live with.
Mm-hmm.
After a while. So when I was doing the 30 dates in 30 days,
Mm-hmm.
I think I got like that. I spent like 3 or 4 months actually honing the list, right, and like was really getting to know exactly who I was looking for. I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure I was at about 1 in 2 dates was that type of girl, but there were other things that made it so that it didn't happen.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, definitely you can do that in 6 weeks. And I think
Yeah,
that's a good thing to do when you're starting out too, is make a very, very extensive list, and then it's gonna develop over time. So like
sure.
after every couple of few dates, you actually go back and revise the list and move things back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring up Coot's comment here. He made a question here in the YouTube chat. Don't women in a relationship become more feminine over time? Um, mm, yes and no. They are able to show more of their feminine side over time once they feel confident that you're stepping up and taking care of the masculine things that are giving them the room to show that more feminine side. So they don't actually become more feminine, but they can act that way more often because they feel freer, they feel safer in the relationship. And so they can do those things. But by the same token, a woman can become more masculine over time in a relationship if you are bitching out and showing a bunch of feminine qualities. Then she's going to have to step up to fill in the masculine role because that has to be filled by someone. Someone has to be the decision maker. Someone has to say what's going to happen. Someone has to set the expectations and the rules. And if you refuse to do it, then she's going to have to. So I think you can see both. It depends entirely on your actions, your behavior, and what it is that you show her, how safe you make her feel.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then Michichi also asked the question, I probably answered this about 100 times, but how important are language differences in our opinions? And to me, it doesn't really matter at all.
Um, there are definitely certain considerations in the language differences, but they are so small and they come so late in the relationship that, to be entirely honest, at the beginning, they don't make any fucking difference, right? They don't make any
Yeah.
difference. For those of you who have been inside of the course, and if you've seen the Jack and Rich Shooting the Shit series, where we did one with Eldar, for those of you who actually met Eldar, you'll know that this is true. And for those of you who have seen the video, you got the vibe of it. Eldar is Russian. Eldar doesn't speak English, doesn't speak Korean. Like he has like literally toddler level English and toddler level Korean. Basically nothing. But Eldar was able to consistently pick up girls from street game, not just for hookups, but for regular relationships, for short-term relationships, for flings, for friends with benefits situations. Now, not for anything long-term, not for anything serious, because they didn't speak any of the language together. So it was very, very tough for them to have any kind of serious relationship. But for short-term things, for flings, he would usually keep girls around for about 3 weeks on average before they get tired of it and just move on. Eldar was able to do that, functionally speaking, nothing with them. So early in the relationship, languages don't matter at all. Turning it into an actual relationship, you need to have some common language. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? If you're meeting a Korean girl and she doesn't speak English to save her fucking life, okay, cool. Your Korean doesn't need to be amazing. It just needs to be good enough to get certain ideas across, right? Just some basic level shit. Just some like, okay, cool. What are we going to have for dinner? Where do you want to go? Oh, yeah, I want to go here. I want to do this thing. Just literally like for the Korean viewpoint, like topic 2, maybe topic 3 is like, that's more than enough. That's plenty. Um, honestly, I had one girl I dated for about 6 to 9 months, somewhere in that range, who she didn't speak English at all, but she could understand it pretty well, but just was shit at speaking it. So she would speak Korean to me, and I would answer her in English. And we would literally speak two different languages at the same time at each other, and it worked fine, right? Like that wasn't the reason we broke up. So language differences, not all that important, honestly. Paul, do you have anything to add on that, or do you want to move on to the
Yeah, I was
the
just
other
going to say
cacao?
I definitely agree that the longer the relationship lasts, the more important language becomes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I see a little bit of the same with like you speaking English and Korean at the same time and around each other, because that's quite
Sure.
what I'm used to at this point. I don't even think, though, I don't even think you need topic two. I think even topic one, you would be able to survive at least for 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. You could probably keep a relationship going for 6 months with topic one, which honestly, in that 6 month period, you could move your language level up quite a bit, right? In 6 months. So if you actually got into a relationship with somebody and you wanted to make it more serious, you could put forth a little bit of effort. What is it like? You can do a class 3 days a week, and like you can get plenty of practice in there.
Absolutely.
My first year in Korea, I didn't do any classes, but I started dating a girl whose English was shit, and so she taught me Korean words and Korean phrases, and I just like took notes in my phone, and then I used that to practice texting back and forth because reading and writing is easier than speaking and listening at first. And so I just used that, and then I started translating it into speaking, and again, right? Like it doesn't take that much work, that much effort. You can bridge the language gap pretty well. Coot's got one for us. Let's go ahead and throw that one up. Perfect. If you know, you know. Let's move on into the cacao questions that we received.
Yeah, sure. First one is, how do you deal with high volume of approaches when you know you're going to leave in a couple of weeks? Moving out of California, and I want to embody more of burn it to the ground mentality in my outings, but legit, it won't matter when I'm gone. Approach anxiety is not a major issue, but I still usually don't do more than like 2 to 4 approaches in an outing. Just approach everyone.
If approach anxiety isn't an issue, and when you go out you're only doing 2 to 4 approaches,
State
then
control.
that, huh?
State control. So you can reset into the start again, maybe over and over again to do more and more.
It might be a state control issue, but this also might be a mismatch issue, right? Like if I'm going to try to find like a worker bee type, but I'm going to a college sports bar, then I might only do 2 to 4 approaches because that's all that I see of that type. So I might be in the wrong place. If approach anxiety isn't an issue and you're only doing 2 to 4 approaches on an outing, then you're either in the wrong place or you're not paying attention, or approach anxiety actually is a thing and you're pretending that it's not, or maybe it's a state control issue where after a given rejection, then you feel like, right? So it might be something like that. Whatever the situation is, I don't know where your bottleneck is, but you probably do. And my initial guess, just taking everything you say at pure face value, is that you're going to the wrong places or you're trying to talk to the wrong girls, right? Maybe you are 5 and you're like, well, but I only approach 10s. Like, okay, well, that would be a reason why you only do 2 to 4 approaches and you get shot down every time, right? So it might be something like that. It might be a mismatch of reality versus imagination.
Yeah, I definitely think that is good things that are good reasons for this to be happening. Yeah, I think like whenever we go out in Korea, doing both 10 and 20 in just a single bar night is super easy because we know where we're going, right? Like we know that the opportunities are going to be there if we just want to.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
That's why
like,
the first thing I was thinking about was state control, because that's usually what stops us when
sure.
we're going at it.
Well, and when we took Tay Tay out, we took him out for like 2 hours before the fireworks, right? And in those 2 hours on the street, he did 10 to 15 different approaches.
Yeah.
Right. Like it. So it isn't hard to do the approaches, and he was a complete newbie. Like we just threw him in the deep end. We didn't even do any of like the pre-planning or the prep or any of the stuff that I normally do for guys on boot camp weekends, where we like talk through, okay, cool, this is the plan, this is what we're going to do. We didn't do any of that. We were just like, fucking go, do approaches. And he went out and he did about 15 of them in that 2 hours. Bring this one up, Paul, that Coot just asked. And I'll let you field this one first.
What do I mean by state control? So by state control, I mean like, so whenever you go out at certain points throughout your approaching, throughout your night, your mood is going to go up and down, and your state of mind is going to be changing every now and then. You need to make yourself a routine to bring you back to that original state, or the state that you want to be in. For me, that can be certain songs that I listen to. Like if I'm going to do street approaches, I do listen to certain songs to get, okay, now I'm in the mood to go do them. And no matter how many rejections I get, like I can just play that song again, and then it's like I'm already doing my first approach again. It's about making sure that you have something to reset your mental state to go back to the good state that you want to be in to actually do the approaches.
Yeah, finding a way to. I've talked about this a few times, Coot. Reality is subjective. Fuck, you work in quantum fields. You know better than anyone here. All of reality is purely subjective, especially whatever the fuck is going on in your brain. It's all made up, it's all subjective, and it's all based on what you choose to think, what you choose to feel about it. So, if that's the case, and we know that it is, then you just need to choose the things that give you the result that you want. So for me, if I put on the song Soul with a capital S by Tower of Power, for whatever reason, this song, every single time, without fail, turns me into an absolute outgoing energy monster. And I'll go out to like meet the guys out at the bar, or we're going out for some event, or we're going out for a boot camp weekend or whatever, and like, oh, I'm tired, I'm hungover, I lost my voice, I don't fucking feel like going out today. I really just wanted to stay home and lay on the sofa and play PlayStation. I don't feel like talking to anybody. So I'll put that song on as I'm walking from the train station to wherever I'm going to, corner pub, or to meet the guys at the intersection or at a cafe or wherever we're starting off. I put that song on, and 3 minutes later, and I am full energy monster mode because I've trained my brain like fucking Pavlov did with his dog. I've trained my brain so that every time it hears that song, I go to this mental state. Now that you can do the same thing with other mental states as well, right? So whenever I want to sit down and focus on work, I don't use that song, right? I'll use something else. So for me, it might be Studio Ghibli piano music, or it might be Final Fantasy music, or something that helps soothe me and kind of like get me focused in. But you can use different things like that. You could also use physical triggers, right? Hell, if you want, you can go full Pavlov and carry around a little bell. And every time you ding that bell, you have to do an approach. Or you could do what we did on our boot camp weekend, Coot, where you set a timer. And if you don't do an approach within that time, then you must approach the next person you see, no matter the situation. Could be the 80-year-old woman picking up garbage on the street, doesn't matter. You do the approach. Could be a girl walking with Tyson Fury as her boyfriend, doesn't matter. You do the fucking approach, right? You can use physical triggers, you can use outside triggers, you can use internal triggers, you can use sound cues, you can use visual cues, you can use whatever it is that you want. But you want to find something that puts you into the mental state that you're trying to consistently recreate. Now, for me, once I go out and I actually start doing the approaches, I'll get to you in a minute, Sabi. Whenever I go out and I actually start doing approaches, I use each approach as a springboard to the next. My rule in my mind is I can never leave a set less excited and less happy than when I entered it. Right? So I can never go down. I can only stay the same or go up. And usually what will happen is whenever I do an approach, maybe it goes sideways and she hard nexts me. And I have a laugh at it because like, okay, cool. Awesome. You know what? You're hard nexting the fucking coolest guy in all of Korea, but have a good one with your basic bitch friends. Enjoy that pumpkin spice latte or whatever. Like I entertain myself on the rejection. And that moves my mood up a little bit. So I'm just as ready for the next approach. And then I do the next approach. And maybe, you know, we have some little banter back and forth. But then she's like, oh, I got to go. My friend's on their way. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But we had a great time here. High five on your way out. Boom. And then I'm up a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. And I use that as my springboard for not just state control, but keeping things moving forward, keeping them moving up. So that by the time I'm at my 10th approach, I'm in full-on energy monster mode where I'm literally attracting people who want to come and say hi to me. And then whenever I do the approaches, people are terrified that I'm going to suck the soul right out of them. And that's where I want to be because that's what fits for me and my style. For you, it might be different, but you need to figure out what state you want to be in and then find a way to train yourself, to condition yourself to always be able to enter that state no matter the circumstances. Once you do that, then you have state control. Now let's bring up Sabi's comment here about when he sees Coot approaching. Okay, so Sabi says when I see Coot approaching, he doesn't need state control. He just does it. Okay, cool. Now, let me ask you a serious question, Sabi. Do you think Coot ever has days where he just doesn't feel like talking to people? Maybe like the day that he lost his voice and I got him that tea that fixed everything for him. Or maybe he's just tired. He's had too many classes, too much research shit going on, working on his thesis, and he's just exhausted and he doesn't feel like it. But he still does it anyway, right? I don't know what Coot does for his state control, and he might not even realize it as state control, but he does something because even on the days when he doesn't feel like doing it, he still does the approaches, right? So to you, he doesn't need state control, but to you, I don't need state control either, right? Because you don't see behind that curtain, except that I tell you about it and I show you here on these live streams, right? And I show this for demonstration purposes to teach you. Coot doesn't need to teach you how to do this shit. He just does the things that work for him. So Coot absolutely has some form of state control that he does. I don't know what it is, but he has something that he does. It might be something that he tells himself. It might be some sort of internal punishment. It might be some sort of internal reward. It might be something like that. Click up Coot's answer. Let's see what he's. You are my state control. Sabi, you know what gets me to approach is getting angry and annoyed at you not doing anything. That's interesting. Okay, cool. So, Coot gets pissed off at his Padawan and decides to Yoda up the Jedi ship and drop it on his head like, fuck you. I like it. Okay, cool. Yeah, so like everybody has something that works for them, something that gets them going. Talking to just one girl gives him the boost to go to the following. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, is that you use each one as a springboard to go to the next one, right? Because the biggest enemy in your mind, that approach anxiety, is that fear of but what if this thing happens? And no matter how long you've been doing this, that never completely goes away. But the second you do one approach, it does go away because your brain is like, oh, yeah, that's right. Nothing, nothing is the answer to that. If I approach her and she doesn't like me, she rejects me, she hard necks me, what happens? Nothing. I just go on. I'm totally safe here, right? It's fine. It's like if you ever play any video game and if you've ever played Dark Souls or Doom or something like that, and like the first time you die, you're like, oh no, I failed, I died. But then once you accept that, like, oh no, this is just part of the game. It's fine. Like, I'm not afraid of dying. It's okay. Let's just test this thing. Let's see. Can I jump off this cliff and live? Nope. Oh well. I guess I won't do that again. But it doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel scary anymore because you know that nothing bad happens, right? Let's move on to the next question. We still have quite a few.
Yeah, I think some of these were covered by the lesson too, but let's have a look. If she has, let's say, most of the personality qualities that you're wanting a girl, but is a little overweight or doesn't dress as nice as you'd like her to, is it possible to change that, or do you just have to accept it?
Of course, it's possible to change it, right? Like, okay. So here's the thing: is that it depends on what you're trying to change. If you're trying to change personality traits, that is extraordinarily difficult, right? But if you're trying to change behavior, that's simple, right? You just reward the behavior you want to see more of. That's it, right? Just like anything in the world, whenever somebody does something, if they get rewarded for it, then they will do more of that thing, right? It's the same reason why uh, the kid at school who raises their hand for every single question. Why do they do that? Because whenever they raise their hand, they get called on, and then they get the answer right, and the teacher says, "Yes, good job." They reward that behavior, and they get positive attention from the teacher and from their classmates. So that behavior gets rewarded, and they do it again and again. Now, imagine, for instance, that somebody raised their hand, and then whenever they got the answer right, every kid in the class got up and just slapped him across the face. Would they raise their hand again? Probably fucking not, right? So it really actually is that simple. You need to figure out what behaviors you want to change and then find a way of rewarding those behaviors. If the girl's overweight, then instead of ordering pizza whenever y'all are doing a Netflix and chill, be like, oh, actually, I have a really good dinner planned for us, and make her like a lemon pepper chicken and broccoli and rice dinner that's, like 300 calories and 20 grams of protein, and like, oh, but it's delicious. And then you give her a good horse fucking after, and now she's been rewarded for the thing that you wanted her to do, right? Like, so if you want to change behaviors for somebody, find a way to reward them for doing the thing that you want. Punishment doesn't work as well. Don't try to do both. Punishment works when you're in the room and if she can't get away from the thing, right? Punishment essentially teaches people how to avoid the punishment rather than how to do the behavior that you want. So think about like how I acted during COVID. They never rewarded me for any of the things that they wanted me to do. They just tried to punish me for doing the things that they didn't want me to do, right? So what did I do? Found ways to try and get around it, right? Where I would do things like, oh, I just wear the mask under my nose, or I would stand outside with the mask just down around my chin and just a drink always almost at my face. So if anybody said it, it's like, oh, I'm taking a drink. Don't worry. But I'm finishing this sentence first. But like, the punishment only works to teach them how to get around the rules that you've set up. Reward reinforces the good behavior. So take that for what it's worth. But yes, you absolutely can train different behaviors into someone. Paul, do you have anything on that one?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. The next question then is, like, when you're thinking over what qualities you want, is it a trade-off, or is it like, are you looking for the person that has all of them? And I think you covered it mostly in the lesson. There's always going to be a trade-off, but it's also like the more people you date, the less and less things are going to be as important. It's going to happen both with more people dating, but also more people, or as you get older too, you know the values that you really need, and then.
Yeah, there are some things that are trade-offs, but also more importantly, I think that what you'll find is that as you start meeting more people and dating more people, the traits that you thought you were looking for at the beginning that you thought were important to have, you might not keep any of them actually. It's just what you think you want and what you actually want are usually two very different things. And that is especially true in dating. When I was younger, I thought that something that was very important to me was that someone was extremely intellectual and could have like extensive discussions with me about philosophy and about politics and about life and society and things like that. And as I grew older, I realized, one, not fucking important. Two, I have guy friends who I can do that with if I really want to. If I want to talk about politics or society or bullshit like that, I can absolutely do that with guy friends. Don't need my girlfriend or wife to be able to do that. And three, the types of girls who had that characteristic also had usually, no, always, every single time, also had a lot of other very negative characteristics that I did not want. So it came with baggage. So that was one that I totally dropped. And now, like I said during the stream, I literally don't even know what Lady North's politics are, right? No fucking idea. I have no clue. She might hate it every single time that I talk about politics, because I do, especially whenever I get drunk and I start ranting about shit. But I don't know. I have no idea. And it's not important to her and it's not important to me. It doesn't make our relationship any better or worse for us to not talk about politics. It's simply not an issue. So there are trade-offs, but you'll find that a lot of the trade-offs that you make, you will start to weight them more heavily the more experience you have. So some things will be more important to you and some will become less important to you. Let's bring up Misaka Mikoto's comment. Almost 2 months in Korea and less than 10 likes on Tinder. Does it mean I am a 3 or less? Not saying that in another country is much better. Are you in the community? Are you inside the Discord? Because if you are, then post up your profile in there and the guys will help you to fix your actual profile. That might be the issue. Generally speaking, very few people who are in the self-improvement sphere, like, because that's kind of where we are in terms of like dating advice and things like that. This is part of the self-improvement sphere. Very few people in that group are actually a 3 or less. Most people who are that low just give up and go, right? They go do the MGTOW incel stuff. But it might be your profile. It might be that you have more to offer in person than you do online. That's also something worth considering. Because when I was single, I could even with like a perfectly optimized profile, I might get something like a couple of maybe like 5 to 10 matches a week. And that was with the profile like perfectly optimized. Also, that was back in the day before we had like limits. And so I could literally just just forever, right? And so even with that, I would still get maybe 5 to 10 matches a week. But here's the thing is that if I went out and I did even 1% of the number of approaches as swipes that I did, then I would get more and better quality women by doing that. It might be that your profile sucks. It might be that you, like me, have better personality than looks. Right? I mean, that's okay. Paul gets to get by on the fact that he's like 6'11" or some bullshit like that. And so everyone's like, oh, he's so tall, so I want to be with him. And like, all right, cool. Well, that's fucking neat. But I don't get to do that. So what do you do?
There are a couple other things here that also plays in. I saw that with one of my own profiles. The one that I got 200 likes in 14 or 200 matches in 14 days.
Keep going. I'm getting a fresh beer.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yes, I would, as I've been saying here, like I would definitely try Bumble instead, especially if you've only been using a Tinder account so far. However, what might actually have happened is that you've gotten what is known as shadow banned, which on Tinder means that you can swipe almost indefinitely, but your profile actually doesn't get shown to a lot of people. Things that can cause that is that, for example, you swipe a lot when you first swipe. If you only swipe right on everyone, then you're definitely going to be shadow banned because the software thinks you're a bot and not behavior that they want. And then what is going to happen is that you're going to be swiping endlessly, but your profile might actually just be shown to 10 people a day rather than a couple hundred or a couple thousand. The only way to get out of a shadow ban is actually to delete your profile and don't create a new one for 3 to 6 months. The reason for that is the Tinder actually saves your information for 92 days after you delete your profile, and you need to keep it deleted all the way until that's gone. You can get around that by doing you can change your Google account, and you have to use a new phone number when registering. And you cannot be using any credit card or anything like that you've used before. But most likely what you should do is you should join the Discord and you should just share it, and then maybe we can optimize it and then put it on Bumble instead if you don't already have that, which is probably going to be a lot more successful.
Is Tinder paid only now?
No, it's not. I think you got like a 50 swipes or something a day if you're not paying.
Okay. I mean, I never paid for it, but also that literally didn't even exist as an option.
Yeah. Like these days, I think if you're going to be very successful on Tinder, you should delete it, stay off it for 4 to 6 months. And then you do one giant boost at the start. You literally create a new perfect profile. You go to somewhere which is a high population. You actually pay for it for a week or two. And then you boost the living shit out of it. Because you need that profile to be rated as good as possible for those 2 weeks. Because that is going to carry you over the time, over the long period of time. The second thing with Tinder,
here's a better option. Hold on. I recommend that you follow Paul's plan precisely to the letter, except during that 4 to 6 month period, fucking learn street approach. Yep. And then by the time that 4 to 6 months is up, you literally won't want to get on Tinder.
Yeah. That also works. Another thing that's quite important before we go over to the next question, is one more thing to consider is that if you don't open your Tinder for a week, your profile don't show anywhere.
Interesting.
They are trying very, very hard to keep active users. So actually being active, you don't have to swipe anything. You just have to be active on the app, and then that actually helps your account. It's kind of weird.
Interesting. I didn't know any of that. but also I kind of don't care. Could you please send what was his name, Misaka? Send Misaka, or just post it in the comments, the link to the Discord that's on my blog website. If you can give him the Discord link on there, then Misaka, Coot is going to send you the link to join our community, and you can join in there and post your profile in there, and the guys will help you fix it. Let's move on to the next question. What you got for me, buddy?
When in life do you accept maybe you won't find a girl that ticks all your boxes straight away?
Yeah, today. That's literally not a thing. You're not going to find anyone who ticks all of your boxes, but also you don't necessarily want to. What you want is you want somebody who balances you, not somebody who is everything that you want. Okay, good. He found it. All right, awesome. Good. Then join in the Discord and make sure that you post an introduction, because anyone who doesn't post an introduction within 24 hours gets the boot. So do that. But as far as ticking all your boxes, like I said earlier, what you actually want, or rather maybe what you want and what you need, might be two very different things as well. So keep an eye out more towards what works. What results are you getting from certain traits or certain behaviors that girls have? And what results are you getting from different ones? And when you pay attention to those things, I know that this might sound very analytical and like it sucks the romance out of things, but as a hyper emotional, I guess, person, like the opposite of analytical, because I'm not naturally an analytical person, so I'm very emotionally driven, and I go based on how things feel rather than how they actually are a lot of times. But because of that, my instincts towards what feels right and what feels wrong are much better. I try to break things down analytically for the more analytical guys out there. So if you're more analytical yourself, then look at the results that match with different behaviors, different traits, things like that. A classic example of this is that everybody knows fat chicks give good head, right? Like, we all know this. This is universal knowledge. Fat chicks give good head. Why? I don't know. We can hypothesize some theories, but we definitely know that certain traits are correlated with certain results at extraordinarily high degrees. So we can associate them. The same way, but on a smaller scale, you can pay attention to what behaviors or what traits are associated with what outcomes for you, and pay attention to that. As far as somebody who ticks every one of your boxes, that's not a thing. But when you find somebody who shows the different traits and behaviors that actually work for you, you're going to be all set. Even if they only have 50% of them, it's gold.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. The next question was a little bit about language again, which was that, say you found a girl that ticks most of your boxes and you want to start you want to really start a relationship, but she is struggling with English. Can you expect that she will improve, or is that too much to expect over time? And I think, like, if you're going into a international relationship across languages, you most likely know the basics of her language. She knows the basics of English, at least. And what's going to happen is that over time, you're going to become more proficient in her language. At the same time, she's going to become more proficient in English. Especially for you guys out in Korea, what happens is that Koreans do not use English at all in their regular life, which means that once they actually have a steady partner to actually communicate with in English, they actually improve rather fast, let's say.
Yeah.
So you will notice over the course of a 6-month relationship, the girl will be very different in her proficiency in English.
Yeah. The girl I dated my first year in Korea, the one who spoke shit English and taught me like basic Korean through texting, by the end of our relationship, a school hired her as an English teacher because they thought her English was so good, right? Like that, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Now, the other side of it can be true. Your Korean or your Spanish or your whatever else, that might also improve. I decided to move only Korean with my girlfriend due to a misunderstanding we had in English. Dude, you're going to have misunderstandings in Korean too. Like, that's absolutely going to happen. Even if you speak the same fucking language, you're going to have misunderstandings. That is all the time. That's literally the most common thing in the world. So, accept that is part of it. There's Coot saying basically the same thing, right? If you want to improve your Korean, speaking only Korean with her is a really good way to do that. But you should also have some kind of out on things where you say like, all right, because Sabi, English isn't your first language either, right? And where you say something like, okay, look, I'm going to practice Korean. We're going to try this thing. But if things get too serious or too difficult, then we might need to switch back to English so that we're both on equal footing here and just kind of take it slow. And that's totally fine. You can set frames, you can set expectations, you can set understandings between each other. The best thing you can do is make the decision of how things are going to be and say it. Because once you set the expectations, then she knows how to act within those boundaries, within those rules. So I would absolutely do that. And definitely you can expect somebody's language to improve. If you are living in Korea and you're only speaking Korean with the girl, though, then it would be unrealistic to expect her English to improve. So again, just like I said before, reward the behavior that you want to see repeated. If she speaks English well, if she's studying, compliment her on it, help her with it, be a part of that process with her. If you want to improve your Korean more than you want her to improve her English, then reward her for helping you with your Korean, right? Like choose what behavior you want to get out of her and then reward that thing.
Yeah, I think our last question for today is, so say you found the one, it's starting to get serious. When do you introduce her to friends and family, and when do you move in together?
That's a couple of things. So first off, before we get into this question, then now is the time for me to tell you guys in the peanut gallery out there, if you have any more questions, concerns, worries, true confessions, whatever it is, now is the time to type them in, because once we finish this question, we're going to move into the outro. So you meet the one. When's the time to introduce her to friends and family? And when's the time to move in together? Whew. Friends and family, it doesn't matter, right? Like when the opportunity is there, when things happen, right? Lady North, we met for our first date on a Friday, and then that night I asked her what she was doing Saturday morning, and told her to cancel her plans because they were fucking stupid. Because I was going out with all of my friends for St. Patrick's Day to go drink Guinness and Jameson all day long. And so she met all of my very close friends less than 24 hours after we first met. And that's also basically my family here, especially at that time. So like, that was just when the opportunity was there. It wasn't like I was inviting her to meet them. It was just, oh, we're going to do this thing together with my friends. I'm going there. you're coming with me because you have shit plans, and I'd rather have you with me than be there alone. So cool. This is a win-win. And that was it. I wouldn't give any real thought to that. Just like when the thing happens, the thing happens. Same thing with family. It's like, oh, okay, cool. We just started dating, but look, you know, Thanksgiving is next week or whatever. You want to come over? You don't have to, right? Don't feel obligated to, but if you want to, come on, right? Up to you. Maybe you have some weird family dynamics, some hang-ups or something, or maybe your family told you to stop bringing fucking Karens over for family gatherings, or I don't know. Maybe you're ashamed of your family. Maybe you have an Uncle Jack who wears his MAGA hat to every Thanksgiving and rails about the fucking libtards. Or something. I don't know. I don't know what your situation is, but just whenever the opportunity arises. Now, for the moving in together thing, this is where I'm going to break from everybody else and from common wisdom on this. Don't. My recommendation, my advice is don't move in together until you're at least engaged, if not married. And that's not just because, yes, Coot, fuck the government. I completely agree. And that's not just like, oh, well, Papa Jack, he's such a religious right-wing nut job. Like, I don't know about that. Moving in together is not a good idea unless you have really set in stone what the exact plans are and how things are going to be coming together, because moving in together essentially turns you into one unit. Now, if you're in the US, this becomes especially dangerous because you can be considered common law married if you live together, which means that if you break up, you could still be liable for all the divorce stuff and alimony and shit like that. She could still take some of your shit. Be very careful with that. I would not do that. But in a less angry kind of way and a more optimistic viewpoint, moving in together before marriage, or at least engagement, at least. Before that, you kind of always have one foot out the door, right? Like, even if you're in a serious and committed relationship, okay, but you can walk away at any time, right? You turn that into an engagement, and especially with a marriage, then it's like, oh no, I'm not as worried about small hiccups and issues of living together, because there are issues with living together, right? You're going to have disagreements. You're going to have arguments about division of labor, about general cleanliness of household, about how often do we bang, or, oh, but I have to wake up early in the morning. You're like, oh, but you used to bang every time that we came over. Oh, but now we live together, and so now things are different. Whatever. There are going to be things like that are going to come up. Those become nothing more than speed bumps if you're actually committed, like legally speaking, married, or again, at least engaged, because that shows that you're at least thousands of dollars worth of committed, and she's at least not wanting to lose that ring and that status level of committed. So it makes it a lot harder to get angry about a fucking molehill, and those things just move on. But when you're just boyfriend and girlfriend and you move in together, small things become big things, get blown out of proportion. And then if you guys do break up, then what the fuck do? Do you both continue living together despite having broken up? Do you take over the lease and now have to pay what was originally planned to be two people paying it? Do you try to stick it on her? Do you try to find some legal out for yourself? None of the possible outcomes here are good. And none of the possible benefits here are better than what you could get by living separately. So I actually just don't recommend it. What do you think, Paul?
I was trying to think like what I was thinking while you were speaking, and it's like the more you speak, there's like a lot of it makes a lot of sense. First, let's go to the first question. Like the first question is very simple. Like, when do you introduce to friends and family? For me, personally, friends and family's opinions and my friends and family are very important to me. So for me, introducing them to them as early as possible makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
For example, they have to be able to deal with your shit. If not, there's no point.
Yeah.
And it also helps like screening and like finding red flags you don't see yourself.
For sure.
When
it's hard to see someone some red flags whenever her lips are wrapped around your cock. So like, yeah. I get that.
And then the second one is like introducing to family. It's like, yeah, that depends a lot. Like when I was living in Korea, you guys are my family, so it's kind of the same thing. Like here in Norway, it would make sense to introduce them. Like if she comes visiting, if I was dating someone from Norway, maybe 2-3 months in, something like that.
Yeah.
Moving in together, on the other hand, I'm a little different. I think that is because of culture. In Norway, that is very, very common.
Yeah.
Typically, you move in my mind, around after being together for a year. And the reason for that is you want to make sure it works before you get married. And as you mentioned in your example, that was literally the situation I got stuck in, right?
I know.
But we had agreed on that beforehand. Like before we moved together, we had agreed like how things were going to go if we decided it didn't work. It still sucked, but we'd agreed at least to some sense. So like the day we decided to split, she got everything out of the apartment the same day. So at least there was some sort of rules of engagement in terms of like how to deal with the potential of actually breaking up.
But to me, that feels even more like there's always one foot out the door, right? Like if you have to build in an out clause, then you're not really that committed to the situation, right? Like with Lady North and I, there is literally no plan in place for in case it doesn't work, because like
of course.
that's literally not an option ever under any circumstances. So that's not a thing that we plan for at all. It's like, just not even a consideration. That's, to me, it makes just as much sense as like building in a clause for like, well, what should we do in the case of a meteor impact on Earth? It's
like in our case, it kind of had to be like that due to like moving countries and stuff like that. I think
I get that. Like
if we were living in Norway,
logic behind it.
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say, but I think like if we'd been living in Norway and we'd been living rather closely, we would probably move in together, but both of us keep our original apartments to begin with, just to see if it works. Because the Norwegians have a tendency to like move in together, see if it works, decide to split up within the first year of living together. And if not, then you get married, basically.
What does that mean? Like, see if it works?
Well, so I've learned, at least for me, I feel like you get to see a new side of a person once you start living together with them.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, sometimes
that's like my wife sees me work a lot more, and she sees me play a lot more PlayStation than when we didn't live together.
Exactly.
Like, those are true.
And sometimes those traits mismatch with what people think of you, right? That can happen. And I think that is kind of like, I think Norwegians have built it in kind of a safety net to not get married and risk losing the house in case you get married too early, right? So I think it's like a back and forth kind of thing. But though same in Norway, you after living together for 2 years, it is considered a common law marriage.
Okay, so that is actually something to consider. Sorry, I'm not being rude, but the kid is waking up in 5 minutes, and so he might join us.
Oh, but there are no more questions, and I think we're just gotten through.
Okay, cool. Well, so actually, I'm I'm curious about this because I technically, like, again, from a legal sense, was common law married with the Polish girl before I moved to Korea, because we lived together for, I don't know, more than 2 years.
Yeah,
that's why after a year you break up, because 2 years and you're married.
I think, but also in Norway we have what is known as, so you have common law marriages, you have marriage, but then you also have the division of property is based on everything gained after the marriage was started.
So
Which
it would
means
be
technically,
your point.
yeah. So anything after that is what goes into division. So if
So
say,
common law marriage would effectively be an assumed prenuptial.
yeah, the same from in Norway, the same is presumed in like an actual marriage.
Really?
Yeah, anything you own before the marriage starts is considered personal property even after the split. It becomes more complicated when you get kids into the mix, but that is basically the base of the rule.
Not just kids, but I imagine that would go sideways really fucking quick, because it's like, okay, cool. Let's say you lived together with a girl for 4 years. All the money that you had before, still yours, right? Okay, cool. But you used some of that money to make an investment 2.5 years into the marriage. Now, is that investment both of yours, even though it came from your original money? And I think most places would say, like, yeah, look, maybe you guys talked about it. Maybe she helped you with your state of mind to pick the right stocks or to choose the right person to invest in or whatever else. Or maybe she helped you feel secure enough that you could do this thing. Like, I would not fucking trust that one single bit.
Yeah, but that
Government,
would be something you did after you got married, right?
yeah,
So
it
it
would be
wouldn't
something
be,
that you did after you got married, but with something that is yours.
yeah, then any gains from that would still be considered both of yours.
Would the simple ownership of it be considered both of yours? So not just gains, but like, let's say that you bought Tesla stock, then would she get half of your stock, not just half of the gains, but half of the stock?
No, she would be entitled to half of the monetary value.
Half of the increased monetary value.
I'm not entirely sure. I would have to read the law books for that.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not
okay.
doing that.
You know what? It's not super critical. However, still though, my recommendation stays the same, which is actually don't move in. And the reason is because I feel like, logically speaking, I completely understand where Paul's coming from in this idea of like, well, let's see if it works together. Let's see if this thing works. But I feel like if you're married first, then it has to work, right? It doesn't matter. You don't have an option but to find a way to make it work, which means that, all right, cool. Like, we need to do something here, whatever the situation is. If there's something that's making you angry, we need to figure out either one, why I'm doing it in a way that makes sense to you so that you can accept it, or two, we need to find a way to change this behavior so that, or compromise or find something here. But it doesn't work isn't really an option here. Let's bring Coot's thing up. Get your option game on if she's entitled to half the loss. Oh, absolutely. Like the day before she moves out, you're just like, look, we're throwing it all on like on a 100x leveraged Bitcoin position. Just like fuck it. Either we both get wildly rich or you get fucking nothing, bitch. That would be fun. That I don't think that would work though. The same way that like the government will take your money if you succeed, but they won't give you money if you aren't succeeding, right? Like government only takes the winnings. They never take the losses, right? Oh, unless you're a bank. If you're a bank, they're happy to take the losses. But on an individual level, governments always take the winnings and never take the losses. I think that the same is true in terms of alimony and things like that. I don't think that they would calculate losses in against other things. They would just say, oh, okay, cool. Well, you lost on this, so then you owe her nothing, right? It wouldn't be, well, this counts against the value of everything else. But I like where your head's at. And there's a sound logical argument for that. All right. I think that we have done all the questions, and we've done a full 2 hours at this point. So we're probably going to go ahead and call it here. So for those of you who've joined, by the way, I want to commend you guys who join us here on YouTube every week. Y'all are absolute champions because our view count has literally stayed the same for 2 fucking hours. Every one of you soldiers out there has been here from the start and stayed the whole way through, which I absolutely love. Do you know what Korean law is about living together, etc.? I don't know, but I don't think Korea has common law marriage.
They actually do.
They do. Okay. Tell me more.
And that would be as if you have lived together for 2 years or more as what would be considered a married couple. So basically, if you're sharing an address for more than 2 years, both persons living there, you would be considered common law married.
Interesting.
Or you can also have a public, like a wedding ceremony without actual wedding certificates. Then you would also be considered common law married, even if you never signed any paperwork.
Oh yeah, there was that cult back in the late 90s or early 2000s that did the mass wedding for like 600 couples or something like that.
Yeah,
I remember that shit.
That is also considered a common law marriage.
Interesting. So wait, like, can I just marry some people out at a bar?
It says if you have been publicized, announced, or otherwise outwardly shown that the relationship is akin to a marriage, the couple has had a formal wedding ceremony, or the couple has lived together as a married couple. So basically, if you both stay in the bar and say we are married, both state the same, then yes, technically it's a common law marriage.
Life goals, baby. I'm gonna start performing weddings by the power vested in me by the statutes of common law marriage in the country of the Republic of Korea. I now pronounce you drunk and drunkette. You may now kiss the shit-faced person. Who cares? Let's party, baby. Holy shit, that would be wild. Oh my God. And imagine what a party we could throw. You know what? Fun fact, Coot. I actually am an ordained minister from my time way back before I came to Korea. And so, legally speaking, I can perform marriages in America as well. when I was in university, everybody called me Rev because it was short for Reverend. And it was beautiful. Well, what a time. What a time to be alive. I had 2 nicknames throughout university. One was Rev, and the other was Hurricane. I think you can guess why. Anyway, imagine the kind of party that you'd get to throw if we got 2 fucking drunk suckers to get married at Corner Pub. Oh, oh, oh. Oh yeah, that would be a time, wouldn't it? Anyway, I just wanted to say one more time, love you guys for joining in, paying attention the whole time. I hope I'm gonna check that every single one of you dropped a like for me, because it really does matter to me, and I appreciate it. Love you both, or love you all so much. Paul, thank you so much for joining, as always, being my rock to stand with, to help me out with this, and to be my admin as well. And that's where we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. So, gentlemen, until next week. Quickie. For those of you who are going to be in Korea, if you're in Seoul on Sunday night, we're probably going to be having not really a party, but just like get together. It's fucking New Year's Eve. Go get drunk. Ring in the new year. All that stuff. So if you're around, come join in. Message me in the Discord. Message me on Kakao. We'll figure out the details. I don't know what they are. This isn't a party. I'm not planning anything. We're just most likely just going to be at Corner Pub getting fucked up until midnight plus, right? So y'all have a good night. Have a good week. And I'll see you motherfuckers again next Thursday. Until then, though.